Good afternoon, 7th grade students. This is chapter 3.7, Solve Percent Problems. And like I mentioned earlier in class today, that the video is going to be probably the longest one that you've experienced so far just because of the material. And so I'll try to get through it pretty quick here. I only have 15 minutes anyways of space, and you probably don't hear my voice over 15 minutes, let's be honest. So here we go. Let me erase that little dot right there. Okay, solving percent problems using proportions. You can represent A is P percent of B using a proportion. So A over B equals P over 100. And we've been talking about proportions and making sure that the units are across from each other. So you notice here the 100 down here, that is the whole part, because you know percentages are out of 100%. So that's the whole part. So here this is the very key sentence here, that A is the part of the base B. So B, what they call is the base, is also the whole. And A is just a part of that. Okay, so we have a whole piece as a denominator, across from a whole piece. So it's very important that we have those things across from each other so it makes sense. So let's talk about how we can solve that now in a proportion. So what percent of 25 is 17? So we have to write a proportion. So we know that 25 is the base, because if you read it to yourself, it's very important in this section that you read the problem to yourself and really truly understand what it's asking you. So what percent of 25 is 17? So 25 is our whole, 100 is our whole, we know because it's out of 100, and they want to know what percent. So we know that in our answer here, we will end up having a percentage. Okay, so we have our proportion here. We're going to solve it the same way that you've solved it before. We're going to cross multiply here. And what some of you guys did on your quiz, we need to make sure we don't do is you don't simplify, even though you can simplify here. But you don't simplify or cross reduce. You just use cross multiplication. Okay, so then to get 25 by itself, you divide by 25, not by 2. So 1700 divided by 25 is 68%. Okay, so it's very important that you put the things in the places where they must go. Okay, whether it's a part or a whole. Okay, part. So 68 is part. I'm sorry, this is a P, and this is the whole. So what percent of 20 is 15? So we know that 20 is our denominator, 15 is our part, and we know that we have 100% and we're trying to solve for P. So we know that 20P equals 1500. Divide by 20. So 1500 divided by 20 is 75%. So we can almost restate the question now and just say that 75% of 20 is 15. Okay. So B, they kind of word it a little bit differently. What number is 30% of 90? So what number is 30% of 90? So what number, they're looking for what number means what part. They're looking for a part of 90. So we know 90 is our denominator here. X is here. Now 30 is our percent over 100. So cross multiply. 100x equals 2700. So divide that by 100. You know x equals 27. So it's not percent though, because remember we have 30% here. So it's asking us what number is 30% of 90. Well, 27 is 30% of 90. Okay, so really pay attention in labeling your answers when you need to label them. Okay, it's very important that you read the question. Read it twice just to make sure you're putting the right pieces in. So finding a percent using a percent equation. So what percent of 136 is 51? So we just worked on proportions. We could write a proportion for this. But now they want us to write an equation. So write a percent equation. Use the words to help create the equation. So what percent, and this is the key word here, what percent? And usually we know that what in math usually means a variable. So what percent of 136 is 51? So here's our equation right here. 136x equals 51, or 136 times x equals 51. You can say it either way. But we know that is always equal. Okay, of is always multiplication. Okay. So now, that's step 1. We wrote our equation. Step 2, divide each side by 136. Now, if you try this in your calculator right now, as you can see, you're going to end up with a decimal. And when you divide that, you get x equals 0.375. Now, it says write, the last step here is very important, write the decimal as a percent. Because as of right now, this is just a decimal number. That is not in a percentage. So we have to write that as a percent. And to write that as a percent, you can do two things. So you're doing the exact same step. You could either multiply this by 100, because it's always out of 100%, or just simply move the decimal 2 spots, and they both would give you the answer of 37.5, and that would be a percentage now. Okay, so what percent of 136 is 51? Okay, well, it's 37.5% now. But these steps are very important. Make sure you get these down in your notes. So find a part of a base using the percentage equation. So find a part of a base. So we're finding a part. Okay, very important. Think back to our parabola. So write a percent equation. Now go back to the question and look at it. So what number is equals 15%? So I'm automatically going to go in step 2 while I'm writing my equation in step 1 to a decimal. So what number is 0.15? Because we take this number and the decimal's right here. We move it twice, just like we did in the earlier slide, of multiply 88. So what number is 15% of 88? So step 1, we wrote the equation. We did step 2 along with step 1. We turned the percent into a decimal, and then we can just multiply it. So we know that x equals 13.2. So we know that 13.2 is 15% of 88. So examples. What percent of 56 is 49? And you have to use an equation in this. Okay? We're not using a proportion right now. We're going to use an equation. So what percent, x, of 56 is 49? So I'm taking right here the words, exactly what they mean. Okay, and just plugging it in. So I know that we have 56x equals 49. I can divide by 56. X would equal. It's very important too, when you look at this, we always talk about math has to make sense, so let's kind of just look at this and think to ourselves. If we look back, let's go back to this real quick. It says, what number is 15% of 88? So when we think about 15%, I want you to try to think of a number in your head which would be around 15% of 88. Okay? So 15%, of 88. Well, would it be close to 88? Would it be further away than 88? You kind of have to have an idea in your head of what this number could look like. Okay, so when you solve it, you got to make sure that this answer makes sense, and that does make sense. Okay? So when we look at this, what percent of 56 is 49? Well, 49 is close to 56, so we should get somewhat of a large percentage here. And when you divide these, you get the 0.875. Well, remember, we have to turn this into a percentage because that's what it's looking for. So we have to move the decimal twice, and we get 87.5%. Okay, so that does make sense. Okay, it checks out. That 87.5% of 56 is 49. Okay, so what number is 45% of 92? So think in your head right now before you even write an equation, what number is about 45% of 92? So think, what is 50% of 92? Think about that first. What is 50% of 92? So then 45 you got to think is probably a little bit less than what we think 50 is. So let's look at it. So write an equation. What number is 45%, and I'm changing it into a decimal right off the bat, times 92? So 41.4. So 41.4 is 45% of 92. And we know half of 92 is 46. So 50% in my mind of 92, is 46. So we know that 45, you're only going down 5% from here. So it's got to be somewhat close to 46, and it's 41.4. So the answer does make sense. So I'm trying to get you to think before you answer the problem of what the solution should be. So here's your homework. Write and solve a proportion. So we got to write a proportion for this one. What percent of 60 is 9? So think about this. We know 50% of 60 is 30. So think about what 9 would be. What percentage would 9 be? Okay? Write a proportion and solve it, but just have an idea in your head so you can solve it. What number is 12% of 85? I want an equation for both of these right here, and just think about what your solution could be. This one is written a little bit differently. Okay? Think about what 75 is here in this problem. 75 is no longer the base number like 85 is here in this problem. 75 is the whole number. Or, I'm sorry, not the whole number, I'm sorry. Disregard that, it's the part. Okay, so 75 is the part. So think about what this number should be if 75 is the part, and it's 62.5. Okay? So create equations for B and C and a proportion in A. If you have any questions, please let me know, but just read the question over again. Really look at the words and what they mean while you're creating your sentences. All right, I hope you have a wonderful night. I'll see you tomorrow in class. Take care.